Township of Franklin has been provided. Please call the roll.
Mr. Betterbed. Ms. Grauman. Here. Mr. Johnson. Here. Mr. McCracken. Mr. Rich. Mr. Shepard. Mr. Caldwell. Mr. Rosenthal.
Here.
Mr. Reese. Ms. Brigala.
Here.
Chairman Thomas.
Here. On the agenda, Jacob and Mary Cuddy Kuriakis, ZBA 15-00001, use variance in which the applicant's requesting convert from home occupation to professional office, 1174 Easton Avenue, Somerset, block 386.17, lot 133.01 in the R20 zone, carried to May 4th, and no further notice required.
What did he say?
We did give Cheryl the oath of office, right? Or we
Yep.
did. Okay, so we're off that. February retainer for Mr. Bradshaw, 865. Is there a motion to approve?
May 4th.
Move that we pay Pat.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Temporary use Montauk Transit Services.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Peter Lanford appearing on behalf of the applicant. Mr. Chairman, the reason we're here tonight is that Montauk Bus, who is the contract bus provider for Franklin Township and also parts of New Brunswick and North Brunswick, took over when the previous bus provider a couple years ago went bankrupt. My client has been providing the bus services to the school board since 2013. And at the present time, they lease space in New Brunswick on Howe Lane. Their lease is expiring. They have signed a contract to purchase the Phillips Concrete site on Route 27 adjacent to Tara Greens. We are in the process of preparing a site plan and variance application to permanently park our buses on that property. There's a lot of work that has to be done to prepare the site plan, so we are not in a position to submit it right now. Unfortunately, my client received notice that the landlord on Howe Lane is not renewing their lease, which expires at the end of the month. So what we are here tonight to do is to seek a temporary use permit so that we can park 51 school buses on that property on a temporary basis until such time as we can complete our site plan application, come in before the board to ask for approval to permanently park those buses, and if the board grants us permanent approval, then we'll be fine. If the board doesn't, obviously, we're going to have to leave. But we need to have the buses in town to provide the service to the children. I'm going to just...
Hey, just make a note, Mr. McCracken or Ron.
Yep, it's 7:32. And just one thing for the record, the applicant has been working with township staff for the last 3 or 4 months. We've gone through probably 4 or 5 iterations of the plan. All of the site plan issues have now been worked out or are in the process, like with the lighting. They went and they did some lighting, and we're going to meet with them the next couple of days, assuming if the board doesn't approve, we don't have to meet with them if you do. So all the site plan issues have been worked out or will be worked out, so it's really just a matter of whether or not the board is comfortable with the temporary use.
And Vince, just to clarify, by site issues, that really pertains to the circulation within the site.
Correct.
Okay, and I think
Yeah,
Mr. Lanford-
they need their final DOT approval, which they've applied for, but yes, the safety, the site circulation, the lighting, that type of stuff is...
And the plan I'm passing out, or Mr. Stires is passing out, is a modification to the plan that we previously submitted as a result of the meetings we've had with Vince, Mark, the police, and fire. So this is the revised plan. It actually reduces the number of buses to 51 buses that we were asking to keep on the property. And what I would propose is that we get a temporary use permit for 6 months with the understanding that before the expiration of that 6-month period, we will submit an application for use variance and site plan, and then if we need to extend it while we're going through the review of the application, we'll come back and extend it. I have Mr. Sires, the site engineer, here in case you have any questions. I don't know if you want to hear
That's
from
all
him.
you're asking?
That's all I'm asking, is to park the buses.
One of the questions I would have is, in the temporary use, are you preparing to provide any other servicing? And maybe this would have come out in testimony. Are the buses going to be serviced or fueled or?
The only thing that we are going to be using at the present time is the office for dispatch. There will be no servicing of the vehicles on the site, no fueling on the site, just parking of the vehicles.
And, okay,
But, if
Is the
I-
lighting sufficient, Peter?
Excuse me?
Is the lighting sufficient?
We,
Sure. And then he can answer that very briefly.
You raise your right hand. You solemnly swear or affirm to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth? And your name for the record?
And Mr. Stiers, you're a licensed engineer, and you've appeared before this board previously?
Yes,
Okay, and have you gone out to the subject property to review the lighting?
yes, I was out there on Tuesday evening, and I was gonna take some light meter readings, but right now, since the plant is closed, there's essentially security lighting on. So there's probably 3 to 4 lights on throughout the site. However, there's probably another half a dozen lights that weren't not on. And real quickly, basically, they're actually strategically placed, so when they are on, they would light the areas where these buses are parked, kind of in summary. So there's one on the south side of the building, the north side of the building. If they were on, I would be able to take the light meter readings. I think it would be satisfactory. If it isn't, the applicant will put temporary lighting up during the temporary use phase of the application or use.
since you haven't gotten into it, but just in the big picture, is the intention here now to clear the site? Not now, I'm talking about, you're going to get rid of what looks like Phillips concrete, or?
There are numerous buildings on the site, and that's part of our evaluation process. Obviously, the plant that manufactures or makes the concrete has got to be taken out and dismantled. There are buildings that were used as a garage. There were storage buildings. We need to go through all of those buildings, determine which ones we may want to salvage and use, and which ones we want to get rid of. So that's the process we're going through. Obviously, the concrete, the manufacturing part of it will be taken out once we get site plan approval.
Okay. I'm going to take the risk of speaking out of turn, but maybe I could also hopefully provide a little direction. You as an attorney have been involved in a lot of projects along Route 27 over the last 20 years. It's become kind of sensitive because it's in between really making a tremendous improvement with some of these pockets of places remaining, this being one of them. I could look at this as being a serious upgrade of the property. What I personally don't want to see at the end of the site plan hearing is a plan that, I don't want to see another location like Howell Lane, where you have broken down chain fencing, weeds that are never cut, buses that are parked one on top of each other. I'd like to see at least the front yard, if you want to put it that way, front yard setbacks, landscape, so the place will look like it fits in a little bit more with some of the things that the town's been trying to do for 20 years.
Yeah, a couple of things on that, Mr. Thomas. First of all, A, we're out of the redevelopment area, we're not in that, but B.
That's close enough
Yeah.
that it's all.
Yeah. B, we're going to be behind the dollar store, so my guess, and we haven't done all the topo, but my guess is the buses probably will not even be seen from Route 27 because of the topography, and obviously the front of the property we will dress up in landscape, and there is the store in front of us. That's not part of our property, and we're behind that.
Well, I think an attractive entrance on Route 27.
I think what you're hearing some important things that you need to look at when you're putting the site plan together.
make it look nice.
And make the site plan, whatever the layout is, make sense so they're not, that's some of the things that we've been dealing with them, as far as this temporary layout is, is it laid out right? Are there the turning radiuses, do they work? And what you're saying is those type things need to be carried forward with the permanent plan. So you've had some conversations with the DOT?
We've submitted an application for a letter of no interest. We've given them the documentation. That's why we came up with the number of 50-some buses. Besides, that's all that really fits on the site, because we had to sort of mimic trip generations from what Phillips was doing when they had the concrete plant. When we then design our new site, and we probably will be able to house more buses, we then have to make a new application to DOT at that time.
Okay, and just so the board understands what you mean by parking, it's not, you're not parking the 50-odd buses and just leaving them for 6 months. It's going to be active in terms of the
Yeah.
buses will leave in the morning and come back in the afternoon.
Yeah,
So that wasn't said, but I just
Yeah.
want to make sure the board doesn't think that they're being asked to approve the parking of buses that are going to sit there for 6
No.
months. It's,
Basically, most of the buses go out every single day. They go out in the morning, the drivers come in around 6 o'clock, do their morning run, the buses then come back to the yard, they go back out in the afternoon about 1 o'clock, then most of the buses are back in by 4 p.m. If there's an athletic event or something like that, there may be some buses that are going out in the evening, but basically, all activities will cease at about 4 p.m. There's some limited Saturday, again, if there's athletic events for a couple buses going out.
that letter of no interest or that number that you had, the 57 or less, is so that the overall amount of traffic coming to the site is no more than what exists currently.
What existed when Phillips was operating.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Anyone else have any advice or direction?
Just a question on the access, does it change any, the frontage from Tara Greens all the way across there?
Right now, our site has 2 driveways, one on each side of the retail store. And we are going to, at this juncture, just use one of the driveways. We're not even going to use the other driveway. And that driveway actually is shared with the dollar store. So that driveway will now be dedicated to the dollar store. We will have only one driveway. We have nothing to do with Tara Greens. Tara Greens has a fairly large expanse across the front of their property with various access points. But we've got nothing to do with that.
Okay.
Where will the bus drivers park when?
If you look at the plan, where you see this, the driveway coming in, they will be parking along the main entrance and behind the store. All the buses will be parked in the back.
This property has frontage on 27,
Yes. Yeah. It has significant
and
frontage.
my reading it correctly, it goes from that driveway basically almost to Churchill.
No, it doesn't go all the way to Churchill. It goes to the railroad tracks. On the other side of the railroad tracks is Somerset Recycling.
Okay, very close to the corner.
I don't have the dimensions, but.
I can tell you, I'll be looking for a sidewalk.
You always do.
Okay? Very, very important.
Okay.
That's a missing link section
Yep.
all the way down to Veronica, basically.
Again, I mean, we obviously, that's a requirement in your ordinance, and we'll place it across our driveway and across the other side. Again, our property ends at the railroad track, and then after that, we'll see what, the next guy's going to have to do his share.
Anybody have any other questions? This is not open to the public, so we'll entertain a motion.
Okay, move that we approve a 6 months?
6 months.
Temporary use permit to park, do we need the number of buses in this?
51.
51 buses on the Phillips concrete property, for former Phillips concrete property for Montauk Transit services on Route 27. Lots of Block 8801, lots 7 and 901.
Have a second?
Second.
Mr. Betterbid?
Mr. Thomas, I don't want
Yes.
to make my job more difficult, but you should indicate that we should file a site plan within that 6-month period,
I have that, and
Okay.
you're also not gonna service and fuel. I got
and no service and fueling of vehicles.
He takes good notes.
Mr. Betterbid?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. McCracken?
Yes.
Mr. Rosenthal?
Yes.
Mr. Gala?
Yes.
Chairman Thomas?
Yes, okay.
Thank you.
All right, on the agenda next, the Sapio Franklin Development, ZBA 15-00028. Hardship variance in which the applicant's requesting a variance due to construction of overhanging living space not shown on the prior application, 176 Walnut Avenue, Somerset, Block 428, Lot 14.01 in the R20 zone.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Peter Lanford appearing on this application. Very briefly, in many years ago, I obtained an approval.
2004.
2004.
Yep.
I just got out of high school.
For the third time.
I obtained an approval for Richardson to construct a single-family residential dwelling on the property. Mr. Richardson waited many years before he started to construct the dwelling. Mr. DeSapio, who is the applicant, was an investor. Mr. Richardson started the house, did not finish it. Mr. DeSapio took title to the property, and now that the house is basically finished and we were going to try to get a building permit, it was ascertained either through surveyor or through Mr. Richardson, who's no longer around, that there is a slight deviation in the rear yard because there is an overhang on the house that we received the building permit for, and the overhang is 27.6 feet from the property line, and the house is 29.6, and it should have been 30. The house is basically up, and we can't get a CO for it, so we're requesting a variance, or a new variance for the rear yard at 27.6.
Yeah, what the issue is that little bump out is if you bump out a window and it goes to the floor, we measure it to it. If it's bumped out and it's a seat, we allow 3 feet overhang. Because it went to the ground, it needs the variance, and they're 0.4 feet closer on one corner than the 30 feet. It was, obviously, they just installed that a couple inches too close. We found out when they went to get the CO, the as-built survey showed this up. This is why they're here tonight.
That's your testimony. Any questions? Anyone need any other information? With this, we would open to the public. Anyone wish to make a statement? Close to the public. I'll entertain a motion.
Okay,
Paid your
move,
taxes?
Excuse me?
Have you paid the fourth quarter
That's right.
taxes?
Good point.
Well, I believe they are now paid, but if you want to make that a condition, just in case they haven't been paid, we'll make sure the taxes are paid. Any other conditions in the staff reports, we will comply with also.
You can make the taxes a condition, just, so we'll look for a motion with that condition.
Make a motion.
okay, move that we approve a variance for rear yard setback. Let's see,
ZBA 15.
for 27.6 feet for, at 176 Walnut Avenue, Block 428, Lot 1401.
We have a second?
Second.
Second.
Okay.
Mr. Betterbid?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. McCracken?
Yes.
Mr. Rosenthal?
Yes.
Mr. Gallo?
Yes.
Chairman Thomas?
Yes. Okay, DeSapio Franklin Development, ZBA 15-00030, hardship variance in which the applicant is proposing to construct a single-family house at 129 Culver Street, Block 436, Lot 5, in the R20 zone.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Peter Lanford appearing on behalf of the applicant in this one. Again, this is a situation that this was a property that Mr. Richardson was involved in. Mr. DeSapio took title to the property in approximately 2014. The property in question is a parcel of land that is in excess of 21,000 plus square feet in an R20 zone. But for the fact that we are a corner lot, we would be a conforming lot, not needing any variances whatsoever. But because we are on the corner, your ordinance requires that we have 26,000 square feet, and thus we are seeking a variance. For the record, and the plans that we did submit show a house that we intend to construct of 1,888 square feet, which is at a building coverage of 8.8%, where we're allowed to have 15%. The impervious coverage that we're proposing is 13.4%, where we're allowed to have 25%. So we're proposing to construct a modest house in that area. We are not seeking any variances for front yard, rear yard, side yard, or coverage. The only variance that we are seeking is the variance because we are a corner lot for lot area. I'm going to have Mr. DeSapio sworn in because normally Mr. Fisk, who prepares this plan and has been before this board, presents information concerning all of the undersized lots. We were hoping Mr. Fisk is back from Atlantic City where he was attending some classes. He did not make it back, so I guess he blew you guys off for the casino. But I have diagrams that I will put into evidence and some information showing the lots in the immediate vicinity of the subject property. So if we can swear Mr. DeSapio in.
Okay, sir, if you raise your right hand for me, you solemnly swear or affirm to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth? Okay, you're gonna need to speak into the microphone. Just tell us your name for the record.
All right, Charlie.
What's your name for the record?
Antonio DeSapio.
And before I ask Mr. DeSapio some questions, since we are an undersized lot, we are required by law to try to make the lot more conforming. There are two adjoining properties to our property, Lot 301 and Lot 401. And I sent a letter to both property owners on September 2015, asking if they would be interested in buying this property. They do not have enough land to sell us, because if they sold us land, they would be non-conforming. So I wrote a letter to both of them to see if they would be interested in buying the lot. I received no response. I'm going to mark the letters. You want them as separate exhibits or just one exhibit, Mr. Bradshaw?
Wait, there's two letters?
Two letters.
They're two different people?
Two different people.
Just mark them separately. Let's just keep it clean, so.
Okay, I'll mark the letter to Caden at 123 Culver as A1, and the letter to Battle and Birch at 129 12th Street is A2.
Okay.
I also would like to put into evidence as A3 the tax map showing the lot areas of the adjoining properties.
This house on Walnut, I pass every day. When they just.
Thank you, Mr. Esquire.
Slap. Yes, you did. I wasn't here. Thank you.
Small ones.
And then as A4, I would like to put into evidence a blow-up of the bottom part of page 3 of Mr. Healy's report, which shows the surrounding area. Mr. Healy will have to vouch for its accuracy.
It's as accurate as Google or Bing is. Actually, this comes from our Township GIS system, which I understand to be very accurate. It has the lots overlaid over the aerial.
Okay, Mr. DeSapio, you heard my opening statement concerning what we are proposing to build on the property, is that correct? Correct. And you are familiar both with the property which you bought a couple of years ago from Mr. Richardson and also the neighborhood and surrounding area, are you not?
Yes.
And the lot that we are applying to build is 21,479 square feet. In the exhibit that was prepared by Mr. Fisk, you've reviewed that, and the corner lots in the area directly adjacent to you, the one across the street from you on 12th Street is a 15,000 square foot lot, which is a corner lot, which is severely undersized.
Correct.
And across the street, you have, again, two undersized lots. One is 22,000 and one is 24,000 square feet.
Correct.
Are you also familiar with some of the other corner lots as you go down, both Culver and 12th?
I'm somewhat familiar, not as much as the ones adjacent, though.
And driving up and down and looking at the corner lots, though most of them in that area are, in fact, undersized and do not meet the 26,000 square feet.
Correct.
And as a matter of fact, many of the single-family residential lots or not many, but some of them in that area don't even meet the 20,000 square foot minimum requirements.
Correct.
And the house that you intend to build, you submitted plans for the board to review, is 1,800 square feet, which is a modest house consistent with the neighborhood?
Correct.
Okay. You've had an opportunity to review the reports that were generated in conjunction with this application, and the reports that we have to comply with, we will comply with, correct?
Yes.
Are you asking, however, for a waiver for sidewalks and curbing, since there's no sidewalks and curbs in that area?
Yes.
Okay, and in your opinion, to put sidewalks and curbs in that area for this property would not make any sense?
I agree.
Yeah. And just for the record, before the meeting this evening, I spoke to Ms. Weber, who had indicated to me that there was a drainage, or there is or should be a drainage swale to the rear of our property. I've indicated to her if it was there or should have been there, we will make sure it is there to handle whatever runoff, because there are sometimes problems in that neighborhood for drainage. Also, and I explained to her, and for the record, as part of any house that is built now, we are required to put a dry well in to hold the water, so that should also solve whatever problems, if there are any, and obviously the house will not exacerbate any problems. So I just want to put that on the record, because I did represent that to her earlier this evening.
That's it?
That's,
Okay, we'll try and cut this off a little bit. I'm gonna, unless there are no questions, immediate questions, I'm gonna open to the public. And we'll make sure that the issue you brought up is adequately addressed from those interested parties' point of view.
I had two concerns.
Just, can we just officially get your name for the record?
Okay. Eleanor Weber, 115 Culver Street, Somerset, New Jersey, former employee. Okay.
And you,
Anyway,
and you solemnly swear to tell the truth?
I solemnly swear to tell the truth.
Thanks.
Anyway, I have two problems with this particular property. We do have a drainage problem over in that area. It's not the fault of the property, it's the fault of the way it is rolling, as Jim used to say. Everything rolls into that area. When we have a really good storm, every one of the backyards is flooded. 11th Street, which is now my driveway, used to completely flood out, and we'd have a marsh there at the end. Through the township, we had 11th Street vacated. 25 feet went to me, 25 feet went to the Cadens, and then additional 2 parcels of 25 feet to the rear portion. The only reason that they were allowed to do that is so that we would maintain the drainage between the properties. To date, there is a pipe that runs along my whole side of the property, but there's a ditch that runs completely in back of the other 2 properties that has not been maintained properly. Mrs. Caden gets flooded out. Kornienko's property used to get flooded out. The township was supposed to clean the culvert underneath 12th Street, which it did not. And that's where we're sitting. So that's our main concern with this. Can we get some relief from drainage? The other problem is, how many bedrooms are going to be in this home? And bathrooms. We're worried about our well situation over there. That whole area is still on well. And I just want to make sure we're all right with our water.
We have 4 bedrooms, and on the, there's one,
4 bedrooms.
Yeah, it's 4.
2 stories.
there are 4 bedrooms, and I think 2 bathrooms, as I'm going through this very quickly. 2 upstairs and 1 downstairs, 3 bathrooms. Yeah. Yeah. Downstairs is just a powder room.
Okay.
I'm sorry, which lot is she on? Which lot are you on?
I'm on 8.01.
One lot to, one to the east.
Yeah, 801. 801.
Okay, with the pool in the back?
My driveway is on an incline.
801.
Yeah.
So I think to answer to address the drainage question, you can kind of see on the grading that there is, it does show a little bit of a swale to the back of the property. I think a few key things to keep in mind is what they're here before the board is they're not asking to do in any way more development than the code
No, we just want
requires.
drainage.
All right, I understand. Let me just explain the full thing and the process. So one thing to keep in mind, when you look at what they're proposing, this is the lot. This is the house.
Right.
So they're actually proposing a very modest-sized house that's well below the maximum in terms of how big the house can be, and well below the maximum in terms of how much space on the lot they can cover in terms of building and pavement. So, and those are the 2 big things that are going to affect the amount of water that's going to run off the property. If they were here, you put more pavement, more building, more runoff is going to run off the property. The fact that the property is smaller than is required, just like the rest of the neighborhood, doesn't really affect the drainage. So that really kind of gets to what the board is looking at. The engineer's report does basically already put the applicant on notice that when they submit for a building permit, they have to submit very detailed plans of how the site's going to be developed, how it's going to be drained, geotechnical information, and stormwater management. So what that's basically saying is, applicant, when you submit, you're going to have to show us how you're going to grade the property, how it's going to be, how you're going to capture the water. There's going to be a dry well that's going to capture the water. All of those things, it's not something that this board deals with, but the applicant will have to abide by that at the time of building permit. And again, importantly, they're not asking to build anything more. In fact, they're actually going to be building far less than they're actually permitted to build.
Okay.
I think that's something to keep in mind as far as this application right now.
And they've already agreed to respect the issue of the ditch and work with that.
Okay.
And I think it certainly could not help, couldn't hurt, I should say, for the board and perhaps the whereas clauses, in the resolution to make note of these issues. And so the engineer is even more aware that this is something he needs to pay particular attention to when he's reviewing the plans at building permit.
Yeah, and just one other thing, if there are issues with the ditch as it goes under 12th Street, I think that's a township issue that somebody probably should be notifying the township, and you've called.
Yeah, you said something that needs to be cleaned.
The culvert underneath the road.
I would think you would know just the person to call. Any
I've been a little bit lax.
Any other questions or comments from the public?
I'm Mary Ellen Caden. I'm at 123 Culver. It's 4.01.
And you swear to tell the whole truth?
I do.
Okay.
So again, if this isn't the right time, tell me. But one of my concerns is, as Mrs. Weber said, the situation of the well, the fact that we're all on well water. So is this house going to be using the existing well? Are they digging a new well?
We probably will do a new well.
Okay, because there's that.
Yeah, the well will have to get its proper permits from the health department.
Okay.
So it'll have to be, you know, the separation, everything else. They'll be permitted through the health department.
Okay. I was here at the township a week ago, and I asked to see plans of the house. And, you know, I didn't go to school for this, I'm no master reader, but the house I was looking at, I thought was a lot more than 1,900 square feet.
Now, the footprint of the house is 1888. That's the ground level.
So that's just the footprint, that's not including, you're gonna add a second level to it, and you're gonna add a garage to it.
No, the garage is.
Is that part of the footprint? Okay, so basically, we're talking not a small little, it's not a small little house like my little old ranch.
No.
It's a 3,700 square foot house
2900, 2901.
with a 500 square foot garage.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, but eyeballing it to your lot, I mean, you may have a ranch, and I'm even looking at the house on Johnny Bush and 12th. The actual footprint is not going to be any bigger. I mean,
Yeah, and I mean, that's all why we're all here, is just to
Yeah.
understand and make sure that, because I'm right next door, and this definitely does affect me, and I understand that, you know, with, it's a small footprint, but right now, we have drainage problems, we have a lot of issues in our neighborhood, and that's with an empty lot, that's absorbing water. You put a house on there, and maybe it's not putting sidewalks, but you're putting a driveway, you're putting a house on there, and you've now covered all that land that can no longer absorb the water, and it comes to my yard.
And that's why the township requires that you put a dry well and that you direct the water into the dry well. And actually, the intent is to have less runoff after we're done than there currently is now. Because now it's uncontrolled runoff, and we will be able to control it.
Thank you.
Okay, any other comments? Come on up.
Thank you.
Sir, if you raise your right hand for me, solemnly swear or
Sure thing.
affirm to tell the whole truth?
Yes, I do.
Tell us who you are and your address.
Speak into the mic.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, yes, my name is Paul Sherbina. I live on 12th Street, corner of 12th Street and Johnny Bush. And the reason I'm here is actually to support my neighbors, simply because we've been there a long time, right from the beginning. And I remember when the first house, Kornienko, built it there, and now, of course, it's gone. I was just curious, in terms of comparison as to how large a footprint the Kornienko house had originally before the fire as to this one. The only reason I ask is out of concern for my neighbors because of the flooding, and of course also to add my own thoughts on there is a culvert over there that needs to be handled because it goes underneath the 12th Street in that area and goes alongside of my property and out towards the back and eventually towards the Ukrainian village. And well, I'll be happy to see the property developed as long as it's not a McMansion, you know, because there was a house there before. But just again, that it doesn't cause us additional problems with, I have well water, they have well waters, and also this is as good a time as any to say, yeah, that culvert over there needs some maintenance from time to time.
Well, number one, the culvert isn't their responsibility. That's our township responsibility.
No, I know, I realize that.
But what I'm saying is that if you come in and talk to our engineering department, they'll send someone out there to do an inspection. Or if you, we met the other day, if you come in and remind me, I'll bring you over there and we can have that discussion.
Okay. All right, it's fine.
It's obviously a problem. We want to get it taken care of.
It's not an overwhelming problem, but it's one.
But no, if it needs to be
attention.
clean.
That's all.
The second issue with the drainage is they testified, we're one of the few municipalities in the state that require you to address individual lot stormwater with a dry well. So if anything, the stormwater issues that may be emanating from that property will be lessened because of what our engineering department, through the planning board and the zoning board, we're very, very adamant on that, and that's been taken care of. That issue, if any, it surely won't get any worse, and it will probably get a little bit better.
Thank you. No, you allayed my fears. My only concern was I just got this piece of paper, and the wife said, got to come out and support Mary Ellen and Ms. Weber, and simply because, are we going to have a Big Mac match? Apparently not. Everything seems to be copacetic.
Now, this board does a very, very good job of making sure that it fits into the neighborhood, and as you can see, that the house is half the size of what they could build. Because this board wouldn't allow anything like that.
Yeah, that's why I was sitting here. I said, do I really need to get up and say anything? I said, but since I took the drive and I could have been watching TV, I figured. How often do you have an audience? All right, thank you very much.
Quick question, Mr. Lanford, the exhibit that you provided the board, there's a little, you have the property in question. There seems to be a house drawn on there. It looks to me that is to scale, that is the house that is proposed. You know? It looks like it.
Now you got him confused. He's not sure.
I see it, and Mr. Fisk drew that, and I would think it's the scale, but I don't want to represent it because I don't know for sure.
I'll just looking at it in terms of the actual shape in relation to the plans, and then comparing this to the plans, it looks like it is drawn to scale. And the reason I ask that question is, and it kind of matches what you see when you look at the aerial. That the house that's being proposed is very much in keeping with the scale of the homes in the surrounding neighborhood in terms of the amount of the lot that's covered. The gentleman who just spoke, I mean, if anything, this house definitely occupies far less than yours does. That the other homes, the people who have come, I mean, the house that's proposed is absolutely in keeping. And then again, as has been mentioned many times before, compared to what the ordinance, the max that would be permitted, it's far less. Mr. Lanford, you had mentioned that you provided this exhibit with the house. Is this what your client intends to build on that lot?
That is correct.
Would you be opposed to some condition to that effect?
No, those are the plans we submitted.
Okay, so.
I mean, we haven't selected the colors or anything else, but the footprint and
Footprint and the overall. Yep. Okay,
Including the setbacks?
including the setbacks.
Okay, then we will close to the public. Now, any other board questions?
I have a question. We were talking about dry wells, but one of the details on the detail sheet says that the dry well isn't proposed to be constructed.
It'll be constructed, I guarantee you that. We have the minor development ordinance that requires them to do stormwater, and 95% of the time it's a dry well, because that's the, but that'll be done during the building permit process. They have to, when they submit for a building permit, goes over to engineering. Fisk has done 50 of them in town where he designs it. If it says that's not to be done, that's for this purposes, but that's going to be a condition. They have to comply with the engineering report, which requires them to do that. Yeah.
Okay.
That I can guarantee you about.
Any other questions? Okay, do you feel the need to say anything else?
Other than just to repeat my request for the waiver of sidewalk, which was also supported by the engineering department and curbing. Other than that, I don't need to say
You
anything.
pay into the fund then. You pay into the fund, right?
Yep.
That's what we always do.
All right, if there's no other discussion, and we'll entertain a motion.
Okay, recommend approval of a variance for an undersized lot with a minimum lot area of 21,478 square feet for a single-family home on the corner lot at 129 Culver Street in the R20 zone.
You have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Call the board.
Mr. Betterbid?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. McCracken?
Yes.
Mr. Rosenthal?
Yes.
Mr. Gallo?
Yes.
Chairman Thomas?
Yes.
Thank you very much.
We are meeting in 2 weeks.
Okay, any other business? If not, I'll entertain a motion to close.
See y'all later, I'm running for my soccer match.
Move that we close.
Okay, meeting adjourned.